And now that signifies that most likely in the next months, we will have MSTR printing black numbers, which is, in my opinion, helping them to get, or having a bigger probability of them getting into the S&P 500 in the near future. Because as Bitcoin's volatility is dampening, the amount of times that they print those black numbers signifies to the committee that probably this is a company worth having in the index, right? And that's what I'm lacking right now is looking at this. I think we're setting up for a great next couple of quarters to have this announcement come, hopefully, for MSTR.
Are you all in on the chair? How many chairs are you sitting on right now?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to One Chair. As a reminder, none of what you will hear is financial advice, and this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only.
Hey, everyone. So we have a short announcement as we are trying to foster education for the Bitcoin Treasury space. We'll be expanding our channel into Spanish, French, and German via the One Chair International channel. So those videos will be translated with the help of AI. You can find the link to this new channel in the description, where we will be posting more information there. All right, back to you, Quentin.
All right, so today our first topic will be a bit of macro, because there was a super interesting podcast that came out this week from GMI. Raoul Pal and Julian Bittel. We'll link this podcast in the show notes here. I recommend you watch the whole thing. It's about 1.5 hours of deep macro chart analysis. So if you're interested in that, we'll just show you a few highlights out of it and what this could potentially mean for Bitcoin and for the next few months of the cycle. And starting with the first one, that is mapping the ISM with the 4-year cycle that we've had traditionally in Bitcoin. And what you can see here right away is that this time is a bit different in the fact that the ISM is not rising when it should be, and this is potentially a reason why Bitcoin's rally has been a bit muted so far. It did go up a lot already in the last 2 years, but compared to other cycles, it's not what we have been used to. And basically, the main message that they have here is that this 4-year cycle is driven by the rolling of debt of governments. This cycle has been pretty accurate since 2008, when the great financial crisis and all interest rates were slashed to zero, and then within those 4-year cycles, the debt was rolled. In those 4-year cycles, the debt is being refinanced, and which leads to an uptick in the ISM. And looking at the current debt that the governments hold, what they're seeing is that this debt cycle has been increased to 5.4 years, according to them, which would mean that the ISM is now only about to take off, and the cycle, the 4-year cycle that we're used to, is actually now a 5 to 6 year cycle. And the best is yet to come, is their thinking here. And this is backed by some data that they have. You have the GMI Total Liquidity Index and the GMI Financial Conditions Index, which basically is a forward-looking indicator that they have. And you see that it tracked the ISM quite well in the past. And if it continues to do so, it would mean that the ISM is rising from here. Which potentially would also be good for Bitcoin. The other part of the presentation, they focus also on the fact that global liquidity is very correlated to some assets. The Nasdaq apparently is 97% correlated to to global liquidity, and Bitcoin is 90% correlated, so very strong. But what we're also seeing is that since this summer, actually it's not correlated anymore. The global liquidity is going up, while Bitcoin's price is sideways to down. And this is an anomaly currently, which they do explain with the US Treasury general account being filled. And when they fill the general account, this takes out liquidity out of the economy, out of the system. And since July, it's been aggressively filled to the range of 500 billion. And it also shows here on the chart historically that we're at a high now of this general account, and that we can expect this filling to slow down or to stop completely, which would then mean liquidity getting back into the system and finding its way into Bitcoin. The last slide we wanted to share here is around the Bitcoin seasonality that is kind of reinforcing what we've seen so far, and it's quite an impressive chart showing that all the gains of Bitcoin historically have been between January and March, and October to December, and between April and September, it's been basically flat. So all the gains come in the 6 months that we have ahead of us. Yeah, interesting to be seeing all of this lining up, and I thought it was an interesting explanation of this extended cycle, and one of the reasons why this time could be different, and we could see an extension of the bull market.
Yeah. So in the podcast, they mentioned that according to them, we always thought that the 4-year cycle was due to the halving of Bitcoin, right? Talking about Bitcoin. But for them, the 4-year cycle has been driven by what you showed before, this refinancing of the debt, and our thinking has been flawed to think about the halving that way, right? And that is the reason why Bitcoin is acting the way it is. This cycle is because of the lengthening of this 4-year cycle to a 6-year cycle. And it seems, at least listening to the podcast, quite accurate to what's happening. And yeah, it's also quite impressive to see this last chart where we see especially October, November, December, the gains that are on the Bitcoin side, the seasonality. But yeah, very interesting podcast overall.
Okay, so that's all we had on the macro picture, and was a bit of hopium for the next few months here, because the past 3 months, especially on the Bitcoin Treasury side, have been quite rough, and that's going to be our next topic here, looking at the way some of those companies have traded, specifically looking at Capital B and Metaplanet, where the charts look very bubbly, with a huge run up in May, June that we had, and massive MNAVs that were printed at the time, and now basically all of the gains of May, June being given back, and back almost to where we started the year on those. The pain in the market has been real, and the compression of the MNAV that we talked about earlier in the podcast, right? When we had MNAVs on those companies between 10 and 20, it didn't look very sustainable to keep up those valuations, and they have corrected massively, and probably overextended to the downside now as well, overcorrected. I don't know what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, actually, it's exactly what I was gonna say. So I think we went way too high on the premiums, right? And now we're I think we're just oversold on all of these companies, because especially if you look at Metaplanet, the way that they've still accumulated Bitcoin, right? I mean, I don't think they deserve to be at a 1.2 MNAV right now, especially with the way that they've managed to keep up the aggression and the accumulation. I would imagine that somewhere above a 2 MNAV at least is what they deserve. So for me, they're clearly oversold. I think we mentioned it quite clearly the last episode with the charts that you presented. And obviously, yeah, we're looking at we look at it from a fiat standard or fiat point of view. If we start looking at a Bitcoin per share, I mean, these companies have been accumulating, right? So maybe another aspect to have a look at is the Bitcoin per share, and see that they're still performing very well, in my opinion, even though the MNAVs have compressed massively. And yeah, obviously here we're looking at the two companies. I think some of them are not doing so well, but we don't follow all the 150 Bitcoin treasuries that are out there. So again, you need to differentiate. I would say the blue chips, or the ones that have been proven and have a proper track record, from the ones that either came too late and didn't even manage to get the playbook running, or the ones that maybe had a flawed playbook from the get-go.
Yeah, what you said is right, and what has happened over the last months is on the one side, the price of the shares have massively fallen. At the same time, the Bitcoin per share went up, right? So it shows that the underlying value of those companies now are at a much saner level than they were before, or potentially even undervalued, if you think that they will be able to continue to accumulate more. And this, I think, will determine also now the success of those companies, or the failures of them, is how they are able to react over the next months, or in this situation now where most or some of them are trading below 1 MNAV or very close to 1 MNAV. Do they still have any possibility and the ability to continue to purchase Bitcoin? And that's the whole point of a Bitcoin Treasury company, right? Is to gain more Bitcoin per share. Otherwise, you would just buy spot Bitcoin. So you need to see a value of the company you're investing in, and it's very easy to do when you have an MNAV of 10, because then you can just issue share and it's super accretive to the shareholders. But at an MNAV of 1 or below 1 even, it gets more complicated, and we'll need to see what the strategies are, or how they're able to get back on their feet.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes back to the charts that we showed before, right? All macro indicators, or indicators in general, seem to be pointing that Q4 will be a really good quarter for Bitcoin, right? And I think we've mentioned it a couple of times, and I think the biggest proponent about this is Adrian Morris from True North, about the MNAV being sentiment driven, right? And it's mostly sentiment. So once Bitcoin starts doing its thing, which is usually climb up very quickly, then the MNAVs will expand. And I'm not sure it's up to the companies to have all the strategies. Some of them have, right? I think Metaplanet and Strategy have the tools to make it, and to kind of wiggle their way around the bear markets. I'm not so sure about the other ones, at least not yet. And with this, I think that the next step is just to wait and see what Bitcoin does, and then we'll have some expansion of MNAVs, and probably then we start accumulating again, and then again looking at what we show, and then probably even an extension into next year's to start seeing probably some euphoria at some point.
And I think now it's crucial to look at those companies and see what they do and how they make it out of it, because we have a nice situation right now where we're experiencing a deep bear market in those Bitcoin treasury companies, while Bitcoin is not in a bear market. It's flat, maybe down a bit over the last few months, but we've seen a lot worse on Bitcoin. So during that time, you have those massive crashes in the Bitcoin treasury companies and those MNAVs that we discussed. The bear markets in prior episodes, and what would happen in a bear market to those companies, and we're actually witnessing it now during a bull market. And I think the way they come out of this one will be very indicative of how they come out of an actual bear market, with a Bitcoin drawdown of 30 to 50%. And the ones struggling now might not make it in a real bear market.
Yeah, again, it depends on which tools do you have to manage the bear market. And I think we can get into this discussion because we have examples of what's going on, right? We have now, today we had the news that Sequence is buying back some shares. So to defend the MNAV. So that's going to be great to see what happens to them, right? Because they're the first ones utilizing this tool to navigate the bear market. So that's one aspect. And then you had last week the merger Strive and Semler, where Semler was struggling with their MNAV as well below one. Not only that, but also part of the investor base is not understanding the Bitcoin playbook, because we saw that they also didn't get their preferreds approved during the shareholder meeting. So that's the second kind of tool that you have as a strategy, or as a Bitcoin strategy, to be acquired actually by another Bitcoin Treasury at the end. So yeah, interesting to see that this is actually all happening while Bitcoin is not having a bear market. It's just a bear market in the Treasury space, as you mentioned.
And we'll see how the market reacts long term. But to those two examples that you gave, Sequence is up significantly today after the announcement of share buybacks. So the market likes that. On the Semler acquisition, the market didn't seem to like it, because both Strive and Semler went down since the announcement. So yeah, let's see how this evolves. But the share buybacks, I think, is a very interesting one, because it's been a debate also within the MSTR community for a while, right? What should strategy do in case their MNAV falls below one? Do you sell Bitcoin to buy your shares, or what do you do? And now we have a company that plans on doing exactly that. So let's see how it turns out for them.
Yeah. And I think it's great for the treasury space that you have exactly two different strategies being applied right now. And then you can basically see which thesis to go with, right? In case that happens to you as a treasury company at a later stage, because now you can apply the better version, like say, oh, we don't want to be acquired because this didn't work, and we want to go with the buyback instead. So we're testing waters right now, which is pretty insane.
And I think Sequence themselves are just testing the waters right now, because if you look at the disclosure, they reserve the right to purchase back 10% of their float, but they're not saying how they would do it or when. It's just in the next 12 months they can buy back 10%. But they haven't done so yet, and the price is still going up. So the market likes it, and yeah, it's probably good indicators also for them to see what their options are, or how the market reacts to certain strategies that they announce. Okay, so we can move to our last topic for today, back to MSTR, and let's discuss what's going on right now in the market.
Yeah, so we're on recording on the last day of the quarter. So it looks like Bitcoin will end up with a price of $112,000 roughly. This means that MSTR is again printing black numbers, at least from an accounting perspective. And I think that's a great thing, because the price of Bitcoin didn't run up too high that now we would have issues in December. And again, based on what we said before, to have a price of Bitcoin that is higher than what we are looking at today. And now that signifies that most likely in the next months, we will have MSTR printing black numbers, which is, in my opinion, helping them to get, or having a bigger probability of them getting into the S&P 500 in the near future. Because as Bitcoin's volatility is dampening, the amount of times that they print those black numbers signifies to the committee that probably this is a company worth having in the index, right? And that's what I'm lacking right now is looking at this. I think we're setting up for a great next couple of quarters to have this announcement come, hopefully, for MSTR. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I tend to agree that if Bitcoin closes around 112, 113 today, it's it's a sweet spot because it's higher than Q2 closure. So as you said, black numbers, the MSTR still qualifies for the S&P 500 inclusion, but most likely it will be another good quarter in Q4 because it's not a too high number to beat for Q4 of 25. So this would mean that there's consecutive quarters of good numbers that MSCR is showing, and maybe for the committee, this is enough stability to have them included. I think it would be worse if now we had a super red quarter and then we made all the gains back next quarter. Then it would signify to the committee that, okay, this is a super volatile thing, and maybe it's too dangerous to include it at this time. But now it's actually quite smooth over the last. You could argue over the last 2 years, it's been steady up for a while now, and
Exactly.
might help for the inclusion.
And maybe just for the viewers and listeners, we didn't mention, but basically the price to beat on the Bitcoin was 107,000, right? So we're exceeding the price, but not by that much, and that's what makes it, as you mentioned, the sweet spot. Okay, so I think that's what we had for today. Yeah, let's end up with a quick wrap up. So from my end, I think I really like the setup that we're having, right? We as we've shown from macro level, I think Bitcoin price wise, also from a Bitcoin Treasury, like all the novel instruments that are coming with strategy, but also Metaplanet, what they're bringing with the new preferreds on their side as well, and at the end also what looks like we could be seeing in an extension of the cycle throughout next year, and also leading probably into the S&P 500 inclusion of MSTR. So it looks like all the stars are aligning to something to Q1, Q2 2026 having some top, and really looking forward to that.
I tend to agree. It will be interesting times for sure, because usually Bitcoin doesn't do what everybody thinks it will, and but right now actually I see that the community is quite split. I mean, some say we already topped, others say the top is now in the next 2-3 months, as always, and others say that we have an extended cycle into next year. So there doesn't seem to be consensus right now, other than there is still buy pressure from many different entities, and if the Bitcoin Treasury space heats up again, it can't go much more compressed than right now, unless it doesn't work at all anymore. But if it turns around, then things will start picking up, and sentiment might turn again. So looking forward to this next quarter.
Yeah, absolutely. And sentiment can pick up very, very quickly. Great. Then thanks for listening. Cheers, everyone.
Bye-bye, everybody. See you next time.
How many chairs are you sitting on right now?